Okay, what's going on, guys? We're going to go over the settings. I'm going to show you which the best controller settings and everything to use. First of all, let's start off with the text and sound. It's not that important. You can do whatever you want. I just don't like the menu music too much, so I turn it off. Now, this is the big thing. Game, cross-platform, leave it on. Especially if you're struggling to get matches, definitely turn crossplay on. I know that sometimes you might get those jittery gameplays, but I would personally turn crossplay on. Controller feedback, I like it off. When I hit the post, I don't want the feedback from the game. I rather just play the game and that's it. I don't want the feedback, kind of puts me off, but it's up to you. Then it comes to camera angles. Now, the default camera angle, it's too zoomed in. In fact, I would say just by changing to isometric, you're going to have a larger view and you're able to see everything. Now, you can make a custom. Now, I'd recommend the tallest custom height because you have more of a top-down view. And, you know, the spaces between you and the defender. Let's say there's two defenders here and you're in the middle. It's easier to see from the top-down view as it is from a side-to-side view. And you can zoom in. So what I'd recommend is don't use the broadcast. The default is way too zoomed in. And you're relying predominantly on the radar. I would say put isometric. And then I would say increase the zoom. Now, personally speaking, I would say try it on 0 zoom. But I think, to be honest, 6 zoom is a really good way of being far enough to see everything, but close enough to dribble, etc., etc. The HUD. Now, the stats, it's up to you. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. Then you have the player info. So it depends. I like them both above the head. Look, if you find it to be distracting when you're playing the game, if you don't want the player's ID above the player's name, you can just put it in the bar, so it's basically in the bottom right corner. But I got that. The player scale, I leave it on large, especially when I'm using a zoomed out camera angle. It's a bit easier to see the player selecting, especially with the second defender icon as well. Sometimes you may get confused. That will help. Stamina, of course, important to have on. Fading is probably the best, just because personally speaking, it's just a bit better, especially when you're next to another player. Now, what I would say is number, I would say no, turn that off. The next plate indicator is very, very important. You want to make sure this is put on. This will help you when you use teammate contain. Now, teammate contain is default. It's not called teammate contain. I think it's just called contain help, I believe. I'll double check. I think it's called contain help. Yeah, contain help defense. You can see just below my camera, just over here, literally contain help. So that would be yours. It's just like an FC teammate contain button. You want to put this so that way you can see you want to switch to next and also similar to FC, but more importantly, you want to see, for example, the players applying pressure. Now, displaying the minimap is good. Now, for example, I personally, I like to use circles for me. It's just the most prominent and the most easiest to see. And then, for example, the opponent, I normally put them as triangles or diamonds, just as easier. I always put my color in white because white is just the easiest color to see, especially when you're glancing down quickly. It's very, very easy to see white. And I always put my opponents in red, similar to COD, just color coordination really. I'm just used to like seeing an enemy in red, being red. So white and red is the best that I use for just seeing people, because I like to glance, especially if you've zoomed into the camera angle quite a lot. Let's say you'd like, no, I can't play on isometric, I've got to use broadcast. Then I would definitely recommend putting the minimap like this vibrant so you can very easily see the opponents. Now, internet connection, connection indicator, just put it on just to see how the game is. There's no penalty for leaving a game per se, but if the connection is that bad, you could just leave the game. That's one thing that you could do. Now, these are actually all the controls. Now, one thing that's actually really good, as you can see below the camera, you can see how each skill move actually works. Now, a lot of them are very similar to FC. You can see the ball roll left, ball roll right. A lot of the skill moves are almost identical to FC. So when you play this game, you're going to be surprised to see, like, you know, you have change lane, basically La Croqueta, for example. So a lot of these skill moves are very similar, if not identical. 99% is similar. So this is a good way to check what skill moves are. I'm not going to talk about which ones are effective or not. I don't really know that for sure just yet on this beta version, because it just came out yesterday and I got early access. So massive thanks to UFL for giving me early access to it, and same with celebrations. Now, the main thing is controllers. Now, people can ask me, oh, what does this mean? What does that mean? So I'll explain to you, okay? So the change in the tactics, you can now change between defensive, balanced, and attacking. You set those up in your tactics. I'll explain that in a second when I go over the team tactics, okay? The jockey defense, everything, ball protect is basically shielding. So shielding of the ball. And if I move my camera out of the way for a second, you can see we've got sprint and contain help. This is teammate contain. So people are saying, is this the normal X contain from FC? No, this is teammate contain. And everything else is pretty much the same. Now, personally speaking, I don't play these controls. And you can see, for example, like here, if I go back here into options, you can also change between classic, alternate, and custom. Now, I prefer custom. You just press left on the left analog stick, and then you can change. So, for example, my shoot, I prefer it to be... So, my cross would be B. My shoot would be X. Sprint would be R1. Old school ISS controls here. Walk and run. Think of this like the L1 trigger. There's also a different type of dribbling when you hold the L1 button. But just this is to also trigger players as well. And then when I do my defensive phase, I'm gonna change it as well. So my slide tackle, I want that side. Literally, I just choose the tackle button. So I press X to choose that one, and then we'll change to X. Switch player, that's fine. Contain help, I want to make it X. And then the sprint is fine, and the rest is fine, like so. From my understanding, you can't change your movement to D-pad. So all the old school guys, you cannot move a D-pad. Maybe in a future release, but you can't do that for now. And now then you have the attack combo. So again, this is very identical. Almost the buttons are the same. They're almost identical and exactly the same from EA. Like you can see, for example, that L2 plus, in my case, the shoot button would be, but like everything's the same. It's basically the same settings. And then you have defensive combo, which is just the run and jockey. Now I'm using, for example, R1 and LT. I think there's a bit of a bug at the moment with dumbing with the ball coming through. So if you do use the R1 button to run, I would suggest changing the ball to LT and RT because there's a bit of an issue with that. But that is basically the menu. And just quickly what I was talking about, the tactics, for example, they are here. So you press left trigger LT and you can see the tactics. You got left trigger and right trigger. You got between balance, defensive, and you can change the tactics. So that D-pad will then change the tactics. But that is pretty much it. Normally, my main console is actually a PS5. So this is actually the first time I'm playing on the Xbox. Just because I've been getting some wrist pain, so I just prefer the Xbox control at the moment. But that is basically controller settings. Let me know if you want to see any more UFL tutorials like this, like you want to see how the squad building work and stuff like that. I released a video yesterday on how to start UFL and how to get a good team and how to get major players. So do check that out. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take it easy. And of course, I'll catch you next time. Peace out, guys.